So looking at the little side shift cylinder, it's interesting. It's kind of a cool setup. I don't know if you can tell, but both of your hydraulic lines end right here in this block, and so there must be a bore in this that lets the oil get back to the actual cylinder. But the hydraulic lines themselves are not actually connected to the other side of the cylinder there like they normally are. You know, like that one, for instance. It's usually got one on top and one down at the bottom. So that's an interesting setup. I'll be curious to see what that all looks like when I take it apart. But it looks like these are going to be easy to work on. We'll just leave this into the cylinder, or we'll leave the rod rather attached right there. Fold this up out of the way, and then I think it's just those 4 bolts, and the cylinder should be free. I should be able to. We'll have to disconnect the lines, of course, but then I should be able to just pull the blind into the cylinder off of the piston and everything. I have to take the gland out first, of course, and should be able to just pull that apart and rebuild it and shove it all back together. That's the way it works in my head anyway. So that shouldn't be too bad. One of those on each side. And these guys, this one's not leaking too bad. You can see it is starting to leak. So we're just going to do them both. I mean, there's 4 cylinders on the whole thing. Seal kits will cost about $30 to $40, something like that. And it takes about 30 minutes to an hour for each cylinder. So potentially 4 hours of work. And less than $200, I should have all freshly resealed cylinders. And once again, this shouldn't be too bad. We'll just break those hydraulic lines loose, just the one pin down here, and then because of the way this pivots, I'll be able to turn it and pull out this way on it and work with it all just like that. Should be, once again, should be pretty straightforward. Cylinder repairs, they do appear to have the same type of gland as the basket case, so not expecting any real surprises as far as that goes. Don't know if these use 1 or 2 piece pistons. Either way, won't be bad. And yeah, I'll be pretty easy. I just need to get seals on order. So, and I can't really use it right now because, you know, these ones that are leaking so bad, and these share hydraulic fluid with the transmission. So if I try to go use it right now, I run out of hydraulic fluid, and that means I'm running out of transmission fluid as well, basically. So anyway, I haven't got that open yet. I was about to look down in there and see what that looks like, if we can. And then I need to find hydraulic filter. I'm not seeing it. On the basket case, it's right up here, but I don't see it on this one. I know it's got one. I just need to find it. They hid it from me though. You know, it might be under here. Well, let me get this panel off and let's look and see what's under there. Just as I suspected. That's it right there. That looks very similar to the one that's on the backhoe, but I think this one might be a little bit longer. Okay, it's not the same filter. The backhoe hydraulic filter takes that Wix 51518. It's a little bit smaller than this one. This one says it's an HF 6011, and it doesn't have any brand on it. Tell me who made this one. It looks pretty bad. So we'll be replacing one. We'll get one ordered for it though, and get a new one put in it. Alrighty, so there are 3 types of pistons that these can have in them. At least 3 kinds that I've seen. So 3 different parts kits depending on which style the piston is, all the stuff internal in there. So before I can get that stuff bought, I need to at least have this one apart and see what all's in there. So what I've done is just disconnected this line. It was easier to get to that than this side of it over here. I couldn't get that to break loose. I was able to get that one. So with that open and the cylinder was pulled all the way out, that's just the way I left it. I've got a wire tying the handle backwards, and so what that does is it just opens up a free path from this line right here back to the reservoir, and then I can grab the end of the cylinder and just shove it back up inside of there. And what that does is it just pushes all the oil out of the cylinder. That way I drop less of it on the ground. So I try to not spill oil on the ground, but it's impossible to catch it all. But we can mitigate that by just pushing it all back up into the tractor. So now that I got that done, the next step will be taking the gland off. I don't have my handy spanner wrench with me today, so I'm going to see if I can get a hold of it with a pipe wrench. It's not ideal, and if I can't, then I'll just leave it just like this and wait until I got that spanner wrench handy. And you guys have seen that on the back of videos. These cylinders, they're very, very similar, but there are, yeah, this has got 4 of them. They're all packed full of dirt, but there's holes in the face of this gland. There, that one's better. And so it's just a tool that, it's kind of a thing like this. It's got some little nubs on it that stick in there, and then you can turn that gland. All right, so that gland came off easy enough. And then what I've got going on here is the piston's almost out. It's just right up in there. It's right about here. And I've just got that piece of wire. String would work better, but it's tied on there and then tied to the ROPS up there. And so that way, since I have to pull on it from way over here, it's fairly long. I don't want it to drop and put a big nick in the cylinder, right? So it'll get caught on the piston, and then I'll have a hold of one side. My wire will be holding up the other side. And hopefully I won't break anything. So let me see if I can leave this recording to show you. My phone may overheat though, so. Just like that. Alrighty, there they are. So this one's cool. See the port right there. So it looks like this is like a hollow cylinder, and then there's a separate piece of pipe that runs inside there. I'll know a little bit more once I get this taken apart the rest of the way. You can see the seals on this one were pretty trashed. So pretty cool. And then there's another hole right there. So we'll see what all that looks like when I go to take it apart, but pretty cool cylinder. I've never seen one like that. Other than that though, it's all pretty standard. The piston, it's a little bitty piston. But the seals are just the same. It's going to be a 2-piece piston. I guess you'd still call it that, yeah. Yeah, new seals, and those are just kind of a V-style packings, really. That's what they look like. Now this is one of the other lift cylinder. This wear band in here, wear ring's cracked, so that's interesting. Good thing they come in the kit. They've got these like plastic or like phenolic or something wear rings on them in here. And then I was looking at these, and so I said earlier I thought this looked like the Type 3 type of seal. Well, the Type 1 and the Type 3 have the same piston seals. It's the differences in the gland, how they're sealed up. So I still can't get these ordered until I get that pulled apart. And then the same thing on these ones. I'm pretty sure I've found the right seal, but I got to get those glands apart and see what's inside of them to be able to tell what part I need to buy. So the Type 3 has 2 wear bands in it, and the Type 1 only has 1 wear band in it. So sorry I couldn't really record taking that apart. It's literally so hot out here that my phone's overheating, and it'll just stop recording, won't let me record anymore because it's overheated. So on these, the only thing that was kind of a pitfall, and even at that, not really, but this thing's free to turn in here. See that? See how that can turn? So whenever you go to take the gland apart to thread that out of there, you got to have a backup on it. So no big deal. That was the only thing I didn't think about. I thought that was fixtured in there somehow so that it wouldn't be able to turn, but it is not. It's free to rotate. Okay, other than that, no big deal. So we just got to get those glands apart, and I'm going to do that at work, and then I'll know what kind of seal kits to buy, and we'll get them all put back together. So getting these apart, it took me several hours, but it's just because it's so hot out here. It's just miserable. And so I kept having to stop and go sit in the shade for a minute. I could feel my heart just pounding. It's like, it's not actually that hard of work, but I mean, it felt like I'd been running or something. I think though, on these front ones, in better conditions, if it wasn't so miserable out here, or if you had a nice shop to work in, and yeah, just better conditions, if it wasn't so dang hot, I think I probably could have got those apart in probably about 15 to 20 minutes. on the lift cylinders there, and maybe just a little bit longer on the angle cylinders. But either way, I mean, even those probably 30 minutes max to get them apart in better conditions, if you don't have to stop every 10 minutes and find some shade and get out of the heat for a bit. So it'll probably take about 15 to 20 minutes for each one for me to pull them the rest of the way apart, get all the old stuff off, put all new parts in, and get them put back together. And then I expect it'll only take about 15 minutes or so to put them back on the tractor, all 4 of them. So about an hour job. That's why I predicted an hour a piece. That would be about right. It took me longer just because I just had to keep taking breaks because I'm so hot and miserable. But about an hour job, and it looks like they are going to be, I think it's $40 for the lift cylinders if I've got the right ones, and then the other ones I think were like $36 or something like that. So what I said about it the other day when I was just guessing, sweating my eyes, I thought it'd be about an hour a piece on the cylinders and probably $30-$40 a piece. I think that's what I said, and it looks like that's right on. So pretty easy job, really. Anybody could do this. You just need the tools, and there's no special tools. Spanner wrench would be nice, but you can do it with a pipe wrench. Other than that, you just need a few wrenches. So if you got one of these with blown out seals, don't hesitate to rebuild them yourself. It's not that bad. Just try to do it with some shelter. At least set up some shade or something. Jeez, or do it on a better time of the year. So, alrighty, I'll see you guys when I rebuild these. Alright guys, get these lift cylinders reinstalled. The parts came in, rebuild went pretty easily. On the angle cylinders though, the parts kit that I bought from HW Parts did not have a rod wiper, so I'm just going to wait. We'll get those. I think I could probably just spec those out tomorrow and get them ordered on McMaster-Carr. They should be here within a couple days. So first thing I like to do is just take some oil and just grease these up a little bit. Just seems to me like it makes it go a little bit easier. Yep. Barely see that. Oop, there I am. Alright. So, just shove it all back in there. Give a little hammer help here. Drain a little bit of oil out the other side, my bad. And go ahead and get this connected. And today I brought out handy dandy spanner wrench. This is what I was missing last time. I should have used a pipe wrench. That's all it is. It's just kind of this little V-shaped thing. Make them different sizes. It's a face spanner, a few other different kinds. This is the proper tool for the job. These holes are kind of wallered out, which make this a bit of a pain to use. These cylinders are super simple to rebuild. It's just a V-seal inside of there, a rod wiper, O-ring right here on the outside. I'll show you this in detail, I guess, on the next one. The seals on these were extremely stiff. They were kind of a pain to get in, honestly. But I got them, no special tools. At least I don't have any. They do make some cool tools to kind of curl those seals up for you. They help make it easier to get them in. But I don't have one. So I just do it by hand. Almost there. hammer taps just to make sure I got it. Just like that, that's all she should need. And then turn this. Anything you can get in the through here. It doesn't take a whole lot to turn these, so it's just a breaker bar. Right. And then we just got to line this up so I can get this pin back through there. So just tap on it right here. It's looking pretty close. Boom. What squirted out at me? A washer on that? I don't think so. Snap ring pliers. Boom. The hydraulic line I need to rehook real quick. And that's it. So hydraulic line's right over here. This is just easier than breaking it up there. I was having trouble. This one, can't get that right. This one, I was pulling on it real hard and it was wanting to bend this. So these lines aren't, long for the world. They look pretty bad. So not ideal, but I'll have to get them off there eventually and replace them. Still work for now though. Put a wrench on that real quick, and then this side's done. The other side's the exact same. I'll show you a little bit more detail on the gland and stuff that I rebuilt. So give me just a minute. So these are two-piece pistons. There's kind of a wear ring here, this big fat part, and then a little stack of V-seals on either side. That's all there is to the piston on these. So you got this, the one on each end here is flat on one side and it's a V on the other. And then you have what's kind of a backup for the actual seal, and then the actual seal here in the middle, another backup, and then this wear ring. And then on the gland itself here, there's a O-ring here and a backup on it. And then inside of here, there is a just a V-seal. And this one has, you see that black thing in there? There's a little wear ring on the inside of there. The other one, interestingly, did not have that. Not sure why. And then on the end, this end right here, rod wiper. So all pretty straightforward. If you need to learn how to rebuild those cylinders, it's a different machine, but go look at the basket case videos. I have several videos on rebuilding these cylinders. They're the exact same. These ones anyway are the exact same as the basket case. So as always, it'll be nice and clean as we're going back in. And then I have a new hydraulic filter ordered for this as well. It should be here soon. And we'll replace that. We'll run it for just a little bit. That way that old filter picks up any crap that I happen to get in the system. I try to be careful, but we're out here in the dirt and the gravel and everything. I mean, it's just inevitable. gonna get a little bit of crap in there. So, alrighty, I've already lubed this one up. Downfalls of using a pipe wrench on these glands is that it kind of chews up this edge, but it actually, take a rag or something, it gives you just a little bit of traction, so it makes it a little bit easier to put it back on, like some custom redneck knurling. Alright, now we're to the O-ring. Put the spanner wrench back on it. All there is to that. Part here. This one's tighter. It's got that wear ring on it, makes it a little bit tighter. Not sure why the other one doesn't have one. Alrighty, the other thing you do need to be conscious of is that you put your greaser on top, that way you can get to it. Trust me, I've done that before. Installed something and then realized I put the greaser on the wrong side and you can't get to it, and then you got to take it back apart. That's frustrating. You don't want to do that. Snap ring. Just like that. One more hydraulic line to connect, and this one will be done. Alright. And I do have a hydraulic filter ordered. I will run this for a little while, basically just kind of run it for a little bit. Let me back up on that. After I get the other two cylinders, the ones I'm sitting on here, after I get them built, or reinstalled rather, here in a couple days, I'll just run it for a little bit, drive it around, use the hydraulics, and anything that's in here, it'll get caught in that old filter, and then I'll change the filter. So hopefully there's nothing in there, ideally, but if there is, filter catch it, and then we'll just change that filter immediately. So, alrighty. I'll see you guys in a day or two when I get the rest of the reseal kit for the other cylinders. Alright guys, I'm going to be working on the blade angle cylinders here today. New one back here behind me. This is all completely rebuilt. I'll show you that close up here in just a second. First of all though, here is the part number for the lift cylinder. There is part numbers for the angle cylinder. Now, the angle cylinders did not come with the rod seal, or the rod wiper rather. Which is this guy right here. I forgot to bring the part number for that. I got these off of McMaster Car. They appear to work perfectly, so excellent. I will annotate that in the video here. On these cylinders, they're a little bit different, right? So the oil comes from the other side of the cylinder, and one side comes out here, and there's a hole in the cylinder right over here. And it's kind of partially occluded, but that's how it was when I took it apart, so I guess it's okay. So this comes out, and this was a, I think it was 1.5 inches, or, no, that's not right. I'll have to look that back up and see how big that is. But so this whole thing comes off, and this is a tube that runs all the way through the cylinder. So this part is actually hollow, and then, like I say, it's got a hole drilled here. And so there's a O-ring and some backups on that. And this one's kind of cool. You can see the blue band in there. So I've talked about these two-piece cylinders before. Usually they're all black. On this one though, the actual seal is blue. So you can kind of see the difference. And then it has a backup on either side of it, and then it's an angle piece that just transitions to flat. So this comes out, all this stack of these seals comes off, and then this collar right here, this is the other side of the two-piece piston. And so this comes off as well. And back here, it'll be hard to show you, but maybe I can. Yeah, you can see there's a little thing that goes in there. I'm not really sure what that does, to be honest with you. It doesn't really look like it does anything. But, and then that hole, you can just barely see it there. That's how the old one was, though. When I took it apart, and it was working just fine, so I assume that this is going to work just fine. On this one, though, it was pretty tight. And so what I had to do to get it off was just put a pipe wrench on it, and you may be able to kind of see there's some scars on it. Those are there before I ever took it apart. So this cylinder has probably been rebuilt before. Somebody got in there with a pipe wrench, but if you turn it while you're kind of pulling on it, that'll slip right off of there. And other than that, everything's kind of just normal as expected. This whole stack up is all the same. It's kind of a weird cylinder. I mean, you know, you see how small the piston is compared to the shaft. It's 1.5 inch shaft with a 2-inch piston, so kind of weird setup. On the gland here, everything in there's as expected, except that there's no wear ring in these, at least not on mine. And so there's the V type like lip seal in there. There's an O-ring here and a backup here, and then the rod wiper up here, but there's no wear ring on these. My guess is they probably anticipated that you're going to set the blade angle, and then you're going to run all day, and then probably set it back to straight and park it. Come back the next day, reset whatever blade angle you need, and then run it most of the day. So that's not something that gets used a whole lot, you know, as compared to like a lift cylinder or the cylinders on the back or something like that that are just constantly in and out and working. So anyway, we're gonna get this put back together. So all I gotta do is just we'll lube this up just like on the other ones, shove it all in through this end right here, and yeah, it is a left and a right, but not because they're any different except for these fittings, and so they just need to face the right way. And I could easily take those apart. They appear to be bulkhead fittings, and I can turn them whichever way they need to go. But just so I don't have to mess with those,
which maybe I should have taken those apart and put new seals in here. There's like a O-ring in there. Maybe should have done that, but they don't appear to have been leaking before, so I don't expect them to. And if they do, they're easy enough to take back off and replace them. So, all right. Gently set that dude down. I think I'm gonna try to set this up at time lapse. I gotta get my camera out of the sun. It's telling me it's overheating. So maybe, I don't know, I'll try to get you an angle. Set up a time lapse, we'll put at least one of these in here. Alright, so I had to put a pipe wrench on there. That's because this spins freely. Pretty sure I talked about that when I was taking them off. But you can just kind of stick it where it's going to catch the track somewhere and then thread it right on there. The other thing I just thought I'd mention is, you know, with this, I always give this a few taps with a hammer. It doesn't really need it. This just needs to be tight enough that there's no way that it can vibrate off of there. It's the O-ring on there that's doing the sealing, not the tightness of the threads. So you don't have to overdo it on these glands. Tighten them in since they are they're sealed by an O-ring. These ones, these are sealed by a metal-to-metal connection, and you know it's a taper, and so the pressure of that taper is what makes a seal on these. They do have to be good and tight. So that's the next step. But fittings like this have to be tight. Fittings like this don't have to be just super tight. And I use the big hammer, but it's just because it was what was in reach. You don't need all that much. I barely tapped it. The other thing you probably saw is I had to hammer it in to the cylinder. The back of this was already beat up, and so just indicative of somebody else having been in there before. I've found that to be the case several times on the basket case in there. Now this pin I'm going to have to pull back out so I can put the this guy guard that protects it back on. So I'm going to do that now. I don't think I need to show you guys that. I'm just going to pull the pin out, thread it through this and then this. And then this just has wire on there, which is kind of janky. So I think I'm going to try to get some proper snap rings to go on there. The other side has snap rings. This side they just use wire. It's working, but that's not ideal. It's a weird setup, so I'll show you that. That's what was on there when I got it. So that's some rancher, redneck, whoever didn't have a snap ring. They just slapped that on there. So I think I'll just leave this one apart for now. We'll go ahead and tighten these lines up, but I'm gonna go spec out these snap rings and we'll get a couple of them bought.
Alrighty. Filter came in. So go ahead and get that changed. Hydraulic filter, that is. Right here. This happens to be a Donaldson. spilled a little bit of oil. No big deal though. So this filter comes with a O-ring. O-ring goes right on here. Ugh, there's a bunch of crap in there. We'll get that cleaned up before I put it back together. So, filter just goes on like that. Old O-ring. This one's still good, but it came with a new one, so might as well change it, right? Just like that. No leaking. Still need to put the cover on this one, and I've got snap ring spot for those. Alrighty. So all good. So there's going through hydraulics on a case 450. Filters right there behind that panel, and hydraulic cylinders. So thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.